This is bad. We've got to do something about that demon. I knew it! I knew once you guys learned I was a demon, you'd eventually stab me in the back. Well, I'll just have to stab you in the back first. I'll stab you in the butt. Whoa, chill, dude. We weren't talking about you. Yes, we're talking about a demon that emerges from the very depths of the underworld itself. That does not eliminate me from that list of people you could be talking about. Bro, chill. I promise you, we're not talking about you. We're talking about something that gets power from feasting on the souls of its victims. That's still what I do. Say the name right now or else your soul's my next meal. Okay, just settle down. We're talking about demons, creatures of myth that have deeply ingrained themselves into the human psyche, becoming something feared by nearly all of mankind. But while they can be terrifying because of their overwhelming power, the only thing about demons that scare people more than what they know about them is what they don't know about them. Mysteries and the unknown are perhaps the greatest fear of humanity's collective consciousness. And the monster of today's discussion fits that fear perfectly. For the longest time, it was a complete unknown menace, hidden under the depths of the earth, far from human eyes. And everyone had better hope it stays that way, because if Gaismagorm ever reaches the surface, all hope is lost. However, I know we've talked about them before, but to understand Gaismagorm a bit better, we must understand its partners in crime, the Curio. Alright, let's do this one last time. 100 years ago, a giant crater opened up near the kingdom. A plague broke out and monsters went on a rampage, but the reason behind it was never discovered. 50 years later, another crater opened up and destroyed the castle of the citadel, and the plague and rampaging monsters came back. However, this time there seemed to be a culprit behind these events, the Scarlet Feast Malzeno. However, the Silver Duke Dragon was unfairly taking the blame for the real perpetrators, its symbiotic partners, the Curio. These parasitic flying leeches deliver a virus that eventually kills monsters, but only after sending them on a bloodthirsty rampage. And if a human gets the virus, either from Malzeno or the Curio itself, it becomes a highly contagious plague that will 100% send you to your ancestors without an extremely specialized cure. But the kingdom thankfully had a savior in the form of my daughter Sira, who managed to put a stop to the rampaging monsters, found the ingredients for the cure, and defeated Malzeno, the host of the Curio. So without a host, the Curio would eventually die off and the situation should finally be handled, right? Right? So yes, Gaismagorm is the true host of the Curio, sending them out to leech the bioenergy out of the surrounding monsters, then return to him so he can somehow inhale and absorb the bioenergy from them, empowering him while also recycling nutrients through the Curio's body, allowing them to survive. So the symbiosis works for both of them. Thankfully, after a fight with Malzeno, it was sent back underground and its den flooded with water, leaving it trapped. And to make matters worse for it, it afflicted Malzeno with the Curio virus, but the dragon was able to overcome the virus and become symbiotic partners with the Curio, leaving Gaismagorm without its power source for 50 years. Unfortunately, after Malzeno was killed, the Curio instinctively returned to Gaismagorm, and once it gathers enough energy from its little helpers, Gaismagorm will tunnel up to the surface in order to feed personally. And given its massive size, the very act of it coming to the surface is dangerous, as it creates a giant crater big enough for a castle to crumble down into. And that's just the beginning of the dangers this creature brings. It is highly aggressive and, more importantly, one of the most gluttonous carnivores we've ever seen. This guy could go to an all-you-can-eat buffet with Devil Joe and the Carcos, and they would tell him, "Bro, chill, you're you're eating too much. And then he would eat them. It was our belief, with plenty of evidence to back it up, that if Gaismagorm was allowed to make it to the surface, it would just be game over, and we'd all be cooked. And it would have taken some serious firepower to bring it down, as a giant boat shooting 3 projectile Dragonators barely even slowed it down, deflecting one out of the air with one of its arms and barely flinching at the second.
Is that your best?
And the 3rd Dragonator piercing it dead center in the chest. And this was a special Dragonator, because it was explosive. But Gaismagorm still tanked it like nothing.
Do you have any ibuprofen? I got a headache.
So they set up a massive siege at the yawning abyss, nearly rivaling the one for Zora Magdaros, with projectile Dragonators and ballista cannons that could be deployed as needed. I think this is the longest we've ever gone since getting to this point, but now it's finally time to discuss appearances. So obviously, Gaismagorm is massive, a full 161 feet long, just shy of being double the size of Malzeno. And it has developed in a similar manner to Gormagala, having a second set of limbs that work like arms. But rather than working like wings like Gore, Gaismagorm's arms have thick, powerful muscles and end in massive claws that curve out to the side, making it easy to dig through the bedrock and push whatever it's digging through out of the way. They're also highly dexterous, allowing it to climb completely vertical surfaces and even grab and throw large boulders as projectiles. Although with these arms basically being more effective than its front legs, said front legs now act more like back legs, while said back legs are basically vestigial now. It has a central spike between its shoulders and is covered in rigid plates which have vents all over them like Magna Malo, which get covered in red crystals that are actually crystallized curio that constantly supply it with bioenergy. And its large, thick tail ends in 5 giant spikes. But the most shocking feature of the beast is its head. At first it seems pretty standard dragon-like, if a bit stout, with 2 horns mounted atop, with tiny beady yellow eyes one might expect from a subterranean monster. But its mouth is truly otherworldly, certainly earning it the title of the Archdemon of the Abyss. For it has a split mouth with 4 blue folding segments that come out of its jaw, the bottom 2 of which possess hooks that assist it when scooping up large amounts of matter. Its tongue is also barbed. Good luck sleeping tonight. So how will Gaismagorm attempt to turn you into a hunter Happy Meal? Well, as I said before, those 2 arms are insanely strong, and it will use them to squish you like a bug, or sweep across the ground to smack you away. And as I said before, those arms are dexterous enough to grab and throw huge chunks of rock at you. It's also surprisingly nimble, able to spin a 360 to smack its tail into you and send you flying as well. And once again, it's an absolute glutton, so it will take a page out of Dodogama's book and drag its head along the ground with its mouth wide open to eat up rocks, dirt, and, you know, you. It also slams its head on the ground and drags it back and forth to smack you around. But don't forget, Gaismagorm always has the curio with him, who have probably recently filled themselves up with bioenergy, ready to give to him. And just like with Malzeno, this influx of bioenergy greatly enhances his power and lets him utilize the stolen bioenergy in explosive ways. I don't know where these monsters keep getting TVs and Crunchyroll subscriptions, but Gaismagorm's been binging 7 Deadly Sins, and he found his favorite character, Escanor. And he pays homage to the sin of pride by modeling his attacks after Escanor's signature moves. So yes, Gaismagorm is capable of unleashing the stored bioenergy in condensed balls of fire that could pass off as miniature suns. And it can do this in a number of ways, from shooting forward a line of them that's spread out across a wide area or leaving a trail of them behind him as he moves, turning the area into a minefield, which will then explode on their own, or finally, he can shoot a giant sun into the air, which will then rain down explosive red crystals on anyone unfortunate enough to be below him. But it's not just fire that he can shoot, but also blood. He can unleash giant beams of red liquid that can do massive damage, but also be infused into the ground, creating aftershocks and explosions. And as the battle goes on, Gaismagorm draws in more power from the curio and unleashes it in great quantities, to the point it radiates from its body like red feathers and its body turns from blue to red. And as it gets closer to death, these feathers erupt into flames, so it's constantly outputting fire from its body like Magna Malo. But at least the tiger dragon stops after a while. The only way these flames die is when Gaismagorm does. And in the meantime, he can use the flames to propel himself forward faster than anything that big has any right to move. So it hits like a literal truck. So hopefully there was only one Gaismagorm, which is now dead, but in the event there are more, the best way for you to handle it if one shows up is with Dragon Element, which explains why Malzeno could dominate it despite only being half the size. After that, Thunder is your next best option, with Fire being at least a decent third choice, but Water and Ice are completely ineffective. In addition, all Blights work on it at least once, and Blast is a solid choice, and the only choice, for ailments, being able to break the crystallized curio right off its body, reducing its power. And this is actually an incredibly important tactic to use against it, as Gaismagorm will eventually jump to one end of the arena and try to inhale and eat you. But if you've broken off enough of these crystals, then when you hide behind a large slab of rock, Gaismagorm will inhale these crystals, which explode directly in its mouth. Not the best feeling in the world. And as I said before, this was a siege event where explosive projectile dragonators could be employed, doing some sizable damage to Gaismagorm. And eventually, it was enough to break the ground under him, sending him back into the depths of the abyss. However, he would constantly try to climb out of the abyss, requiring Ballista to be dropped down to fire on him. And it is vital to hit the 3 big swarms of curio on his back before he reaches the top of the cliff, because if he does, he'll look over his shoulder and unleash a devastating beam of blood into the ground, which will eventually result in a massive explosion. And I've also got to give a shout out to Fiorane, because when the crew up top failed to deliver the ballistae, she launched herself up above the creature and used her shield to block its mouth as it tried to unleash its blood beam, resulting in an explosion that knocked the beast clean off the wall. I wouldn't recommend it, but if anyone with a sword and shield is out there, it is an option. But from there, it's pretty straightforward. Yes, it's big, powerful, and surprisingly maneuverable, but there's a big wind-up to pretty much all of its attacks, so as long as you pay attention and get ready to move as the time is needed, you should be able to get out of the way of its attacks, avoiding any damage while using the big openings after the attack to lay down damage of your own. And finally, the armor is exactly what you would expect from something called the Archdemon of the Abyss. Otherworldly, demonic, and intimidating, yet also strangely, hauntingly beautiful and alluring. The scales, plating, and reptilian features give it an unnerving yet intriguing appearance, and the ethereal glow of the residual energy give it an undeniable beauty. The armor for the Palico and Palamute Palamute are also very cool, but also unnerving. The armor basically turning the Palamute into a ghost-like figure, and the Palico looking like a tiny demon. And this is one of the few monsters that has a weapon for all 14 weapon types, and all of them are striking with haunting beauty and unnerving allure. However, this armor is also known to attract the Curio, who will try to achieve symbiosis with you, and this will result in you getting a variant of the Curio virus. Thankfully non-lethal, and it will actually empower you, but it is still known to slowly sap your vitality until you pass out, which isn't great when you're fighting giant monsters. Yeah, I definitely recommend getting the imitation layered armor instead of the real thing. And so, that is the history behind Gaismagorm and all we know about it. But honestly, that's more than enough. It is a monster in the truest sense of the word, being the one who unleashed the Curio on the world, causing untold devastation and forever villainizing the innocent Malzeno. And if it were ever to personally reach the surface, it's unlikely anything would survive its gluttonous carnage. It definitely looks cool, if somewhat horrifying with that mouth, and has some admittedly awesome abilities, but ultimately, all of it is undermined by the chaos it and its partners bring to the world. Much like the Curio, this is a threat that should not be allowed to exist. Alright then, ladies and swordsmen, that is my take on a Gaismagorm lore. Honestly, I had a lot more than I was expecting to say, there's not much to Gaismagorm. We barely knew anything about it, it shows up at the very end of Sunbreak, and you wouldn't think there's much to go on, but it actually has a good little bit of lore behind it. So, yeah, that was nice, really interesting. I learned a bit more than I thought I would while researching it, and hopefully you guys also learned some good facts about it. Like I said, it's cool looking. The mouth is really weird and kind of creepy, but again, it definitely gives it some kind of unique charm. Again, it just looks so cool and intimidating. Its attacks are really cool. Hit like a truck, obviously, because of its size. Again, because of its size, you wouldn't think it would move as fast as it can, but it does be moving, especially when, like I said, it erupts into flames and can start rocketing itself across the arena. That was crazy. And all the fireballs and stuff it can shoot out in the meantime, really cool, gives it a lot of versatility, and I like the addition of the Dragonators and the Ballista, giving, different phases to the fight and switching it up. I think more fights definitely need to do that. I enjoyed it, and of course, like I said, the weapons, really awesome, and the armor looks cool, but again, maybe it's just me not knowing how to use it, but I don't like the fact that it drains your health and pretty much kills you quicker than the monsters do. If armor has a learning curve and can kill you, I don't think it's worth it. But next time, we'll be discussing the Glavenus. Yes, I know Rage Gaming Videos kinda covered this in his Fated 4, but he only gave it just a little bit of time because he's talking about 4 monsters in 20 minutes, so that's maybe 5 minutes per monster, so that's not enough. And besides that, this was before Iceborne and Acidic Glavenus came out, so yeah, those need to be touched upon, and I'm really looking forward to it, and hopefully you guys are looking forward to it. But for now, thank you all so much for watching. If you like this, want to see more, go ahead and slash that subscribe button. If you like this video, give a quick cut to the like button, leave a comment down below, share it around with all your friends, be sure to click the notification bell so you never miss when I upload a video, be sure to watch more of my videos, help me get my watch hours up, and be sure to follow me on Twitter. Then I'll see you guys in the next video. But until then, ladies and swordsmen, stay sharp.